Cheers, and welcome to the our little NooK here on the Voluntary Virtues Network. I know I've changed the name of this podcast a few times now, but this is the last one, I promise.
Promise.
We're calling the show the NooK now. Has a little bit of a background. Needless to say, it was our little area where we could trust our friends when there was stuff going on at Libertopia that we needed to get away from.
Yeah, super secret, by the way. Yeah, nobody knew. The NooK.
But
if you're in the know, you're in the know.
Yeah. But it was a place of trust and understanding. That was the main thing about it.
A circle of trust?
Yes, circle of trust.
Circle of trust.
And I'm bringing all of you into our circle of trust.
Yes.
If you were in the know, you knew the NooK. Right?
Mm-hmm. If you're in the know, you knew the NooK. I like that rhymes. That is, we're just about done. Yeah.
That's alliteration.
Alliteration. There you go.
It's kind of like this podcast. So you're in the know.
There you go, Christy.
That's right.
Today I'm drinking grapefruit sculpin. It's much like the other sculpins we've had on here, only this one tastes like grapefruit.
And if it's
still really good.
If it has sculpin in the name, it's probably pretty damn good, whatever the,
Yeah.
variant on it might be.
Well, let's face it. Sculpin's a pretty good IPA.
Yeah. Solid as solid. I'm drinking, apparently what Ian has mentioned is it's by Prohibition Brewery in San Francisco. It's the Big Daddy IPA. That's really popular up there from what he's saying. So it's good. I like it. I dig it. It's not gonna lie, it's not the best IPA I've ever had, but it's it's solid. It's not like I'm drinking and be like, oh, this is a horrible IPA. It's a good IPA. So I give it a 7 out of 10. It's good. It's good.
I would concur. I've had that before.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good brewery overall, but their IPA is just kind of mediocre.
Yeah.
Kombucha, lemon. Let's see, a ginger lemon raspberry.
Nice.
Reeds.
That sounds good.
Kombucha.
Does sound delicious.
Yeah.
Fruity.
Likewise, classic Synergy, the high octane, higher alcohol percentage variant. Very good.
Cool.
I've had it before. Delicious. Yeah.
Water tonight.
Definitely good.
Water. I bet that's water, Christy.
It is water.
You're actually, they actually are supposed to card you when you buy this.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They never
Yeah.
do though. That's the
Wow.
thing that's really funny. I've bought it a whole bunch of times, and I still get carded every now and then, so I kind of expect it sometimes. And it says right on the label, it says must be 21, and they're always like, because they always pick it up and look at it and be like 1%, yeah, whatever. Okay, fine.
Well, don't some places, it comes up on the computer that you have to card them or something?
Yeah, it does, but I guess in my local market that doesn't happen.
Fair enough.
It's a small market, and because I'm in there at least a couple times a week, I just don't think they care.
That's how you do
it. They just don't care. They're like, yeah, whatever, okay.
And it's silly.
He's obviously going gray, so your beer, your kombucha, whatever.
Yeah, and I think it's only like 0.5 of 1%. It's like 0.5%.
Just enough to get that good fermentation going on there. That works really well with your system,
Speaking of Libertopia, Libertopia is coming up again.
Yep.
You're all invited. You should come by, meet the group.
November 14th?
13th.
13th.
November 13th through 16th.
13th through 16th. Okay, there we go.
I think they're actually
No,
gonna
the
start
13th
13th.
is on the 13th. There's registration, and then there's a thing in the evening. But all the talks, most of the talks start on Friday.
The talks and everybody else who has a booth should be there on the 14th.
If you have a booth or something, you should be there on the 13th during setup.
Right, but you should have it all put up and ready to go by the next day. Like, hey, this is the day. Here it is.
I think most people put their stuff out on the 13th.
If you want to do some trading, better have it ready by the next day for sure.
So look for the NooK.
Yes,
look for the
NooK. The NooK will be there. Yeah, that is for sure. There is going to be.
You may not be able to find it.
We'll be there.
The NooK you might be able to find, but the cranny you'll never find that. There's going to be
I just got that.
at Libertopia. There will be Agorist Ales,
Yes.
which will be
Excellent brewery, by the way.
one of the best I've ever had, to be honest. It's
They're going to be serving Liberto IPA and Morning Wood.
both of which I've had, and it's delicious. Of course, we have to keep in mind the situation.
You really like their Morning Wood, huh? It's nice.
You are?
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Because of the situation, we should mention that terms and conditions may apply. Void were prohibited, not available in all 50 states, etc. It's but it's good, and you can find it, and you should be able to acquire it fairly easily with some ability to trade for something. Yes.
I don't know what you're talking about. Mike.
I'm just saying,
Come talk to one of us. We'll be able to figure out how you can get some of Agorist Ales beer.
Point you in the right direction, as they say, quote
Yes.
unquote. Yeah.
Tonight, so we're going to be talking about like alternatives to the prison system on a free market. What that might entail, what that could entail, that kind of thing. John, why don't you kind of give us
Yeah, so like,
a quick idea of what you think?
right, so these are one of those concepts that many people get stuck on. Well, what about crime, and what do you do with criminals, and
That and the roads.
right? Well, roads, and
That and the
defense,
roads.
and the management of hard criminals, let's say. And so yeah, I thought that was a good discussion to have, and what that might look like. And I think we're at a point where technology would actually enable society to manage that complex issue without the state.
Yeah.
And essentially what we're talking about is a voluntary situation where someone who has been deemed a threat to society or a threat to society. So what would you do with someone like that? Essentially, you'd have privately run hotels, for lack of better reason, where they're allowed, if they choose to participate in the system, then they can still have their life. They could be productive, and they go into a condominium type setting where security is much lower. You don't have the rape culture. You don't have the prison guard. The guy who anyway, you don't have prison guards who are tripping on authority per se. It's much more of a permissive environment where someone goes to live until their restitution is paid, or if they're deemed unable to be rehabilitated, if you will. Let's say they're a child molester or something. It's in everybody's interest that they go somewhere. It would be in that person's interest, because they are given a maximum amount of freedom while still being cordoned off, if you will, from the broader society. And the technology that would allow us to do that, for instance, is sort of like the Amber Alert system. But whereas if someone chooses not to do that, then they could live as an outlaw, and their information, goes out on the interweb in a split second. Everybody realizes, oh, such and such molester, is on the loose. He chose, either didn't come home, or didn't, whatever the case, chose not to enter into voluntary, what do you call that? Incarceration, if you will. It's almost like, it's kind of an oxymoron, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah,
There's enough there to run with.
well, I mean, I think you kind of hit it there that maybe incarceration isn't the right word. It's more of a, okay, so if you don't agree to these terms and conditions, in this, not terms and conditions because that sounds like an insurance policy, but in a way maybe it
Option.
is. But
It's
the
an option.
Yeah, but the alternative is guns and badges and stuff. So it's like, I don't particularly like insurance companies either, but I'd rather deal with an insurance company than I would somebody who has a badge. And
Well,
you
the,
know.
the,
agree-
in-
an
the whole
agreement,
insurance the whole insurance spectrum right now is all owned by one company. Anyways,
Exactly.
ultimately,
It's all very
so
yeah.
it's very much. It's not like an insurance company would be on a free market.
Right. And also,
Right.
like, the alternative, right, is not not necessarily guns and badges, but the alternative is being completely ostracized, right? So, like,
Yeah.
once your name comes up attached with something like an Amber Alert, your identity's spread everywhere, and it's very likely that someone sees, molester or rapist or whatever, that there's going to be a extremely high percentage of people who won't associate with them, won't feed them, won't give them
right.
housing, won't give them employment. So the better option is probably to take, a stint in the Hilton.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. I kind of see it as, there may be kind of like, as weird as it sounds, something like they have on Amazon or eBay or something. There'd be like, like a rating of like this person has a certain amount of credibility.
Right.
And if you're accused of something and you don't respond to the accusation, obviously you're standing in whatever somebody's metric that you may subscribe to or pay a subscription to. I just said the same thing, repeated myself there. But if somebody who you're you're having your file with, for lack of a better way to describe it. If you're not responding to a legitimate accusation from somebody where they've actually
Right.
provided evidence of you have committed what we consider to be a crime,
Right.
and you don't respond to it,
You don't stand to
yeah,
answer
to at least
the charges, right?
at the barest minimal say I didn't do this. If you don't
Right.
even respond to it at all, obviously your thing's going to go down. Now there's an issue of like, you hypothetically, if somebody is somebody that is doing something that maybe somebody who's got a whole lot of money may not want them to do, they could inundate them with demands of you're not responding to whatever charges. But at the same time, if you're getting that many charges, you could also come up with your own evidence and make copies of it and present that to the public of these people are harassing me too. So there, that's the other option of that, of trying to think of if somebody was to be some sort of malefactor and trying to harass somebody, you could prove that they were harassing you rather than just
Right.
Okay,
coming up
let's
with a legitimate
say I
claim.
had an agreement with somebody and this person just kind of like stole all of my money and they now cannot be found.
Mhm.
And so what's justice there? Where could I mean, I can't find it now either, but without paying lots of money to try to find somebody.
Mhm.
But who's going to pay for even this alternative system?
Well, that would
Well,
be. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was first going to say that David Friedman has a really excellent, has done some really excellent research in that subject. And he's putting it into a book called something like Legal Systems Very Different from Our Own. But you can find the transcript online on his website. And I suggest checking out some of his because he explains a lot of really good
Is he going
and
to be at
historical
Libertopia?
ways. I don't know. He has in
Okay.
the past.
I know.
I don't know
Okay.
about this
All
year.
right.
He's been there a couple times,
Yeah.
and he's a very agreeable gentleman.
Yeah.
That's
And-
Milton's son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He's Milton Freeman's son, and in case anybody has issues with Milton Freeman, me included, David Freeman is much more to the voluntarist mindset than his father for sure, and will say point blank that the state is fraud and theft and is violence.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Milton Freeman would always kind of be dodgy about it, which is the word of the day apparently, dodgy. Brought to you by the word dodgy in the Children's Television Workshop, right?
And everybody's supposed to scream now, right?
Yeah. Ooh, or there's going to be like water or slime that comes down from above the camera or something.
Anyway, so the one I really like, though, is the insurance method, where you would pay monthly into an
Okay.
insurance company
Alright.
who would then, if you were robbed or something like that, you would file a claim with them,
Right.
just like you would if your car was damaged or something. And then they make the decision based on cost-benefit analysis, whether to
That's a good
pursue
idea.
the
I like
criminal
that.
and that kind
Yeah,
of thing.
I like that. But you couldn't do it after the fact. You couldn't get an insurance policy after it's done.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then that's, yeah. I like insurance being solutions. You know. Yeah. Okay.
No, I got a question, but were you going to say something
No,
else?
I was just going to say the whole system would change because I think less people would be incarcerated, just for one, because we would look at no victim, no crime. You know, that would be, then we just cut off 90% of the people that are incarcerated.
Right.
And so we'd really only be dealing with the
Right.
the people
Legitimate-
who harm,
right,
exactly, the ones that
legitimate
really
crime.
harm people.
Right.
And so everything would just, the whole thing would be very different. And I think the resources could actually voluntarily, I'm not quite sure about this
Also-
voluntary thing where I'm just not quite sure. I
Right,
don't understand
right.
it. I don't
Well,
know if they would,
well,
they'd buy it.
It also,
you know?
like the systemic pressure for people to seek criminal means
Right.
to eke out an existence or whatever. That's also gone, right? Under a voluntarist model, right?
When it's no longer easier to.
Right. So
Wonder.
that's should be recognized as well. So we're talking about the motivators for crime just falling away, right?
Yeah.
There'll still be those who are biologically
Yeah.
wired for it. You'll still have, serious crime. We're not talking about utopia, but just the sheer numbers of crimes, and worse in the existing system. People sitting in prison for nonviolent crimes, and technically even many who didn't committed victimless crimes.
Well, and even people who committed legitimate crimes, how is sticking them in a cage
Yeah.
and then stealing money from other people to pay for his
Right.
So
his
justice.
living? How is that
yeah.
justice at
And
all?
the rape
Justice would
culture
change,
that's in the
yeah.
prison,
Right.
like
Yeah.
just doesn't help
Yeah.
anybody,
We've
right?
already got,
Yeah.
we've already got some prisons now that have been privatized. We've got imprisoned people working as employees for certain companies, either either insurance companies or safety companies or even computer companies. Instead of just, they're going to have to work when they're in this Hilton, so to speak, to keep some of the money going. And as far as payments for, as far as losing, other people losing from criminals that disappear, why not, in a way, create funds or, an account or an escrow type setup?
Well, that's where the insurance
money
would
sits
come in. If
there
I had an
and as-
insurance count.
and it
you know,
insures them,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they do their they
Right.
do their time, so to speak, to use time, but they have their time at the Hilton, and then if they're on good behavior,
Well, they could actually
that money
work in
can
the
actually
Hilton,
benefit them
you know?
in the end if they do come back,
Right.
as opposed to disappear and create
Right,
another crime.
rehabilitation.
And
Truly, we could
correct.
have a system where rehabilitation is a real,
Right.
possibility instead of like thinking we're going to rehabilitate someone in the current system.
We're just creating more criminals in
Right.
that system.
Right.
Well, pride.
They're learning how to be
gives
criminals.
Work
Yeah,
gives someone a lot
exact-
of pride.
real
also,
work,
and
though.
achieving and accomplishing
Right,
things.
real
and
work, real wages. Like
sometimes
if
that's
they,
why crimes are committed,
Yeah.
because they feel useless
Yeah,
to society, or
It's a little bit different, but it dovetails nicely with this. Is also the restorative justice concept, where you have communities working with victims and the perpetrator.
so they have
So the
they have to
community
see
is
the-
taking a little bit of the
yeah,
onus as
right.
well, right?
Yeah.
Identifying some of this systemic pressure that goes on, that the community, in a wider sense, is also shares some responsibility to
Mhm.
it. So, that's another aspect that kind of
Humanizing,
right?
humanizing the whole thing.
Right.
You hurt somebody. There's actually people behind it. And having maybe even having people victims and the criminals, get in and talk.
Right.
Have a conversation. How
It's
did
it's a more empathetic system, I
Yeah.
think, too. With MVC, we've talked about this before. Marshall Rosenberg. You want to build a culture of empathy, and just that alone
Absolutely,
would
right,
eliminate
yeah.
a lot of crime.
Yep.
Yeah, I know.
If people are dealt with empathetically,
Right. How many?
and you're empathetic with yourself about exactly what you are thinking and feeling.
Right. I've spoken to a number of, more so in the older generations, but how many are just looking at, well, if you're in prison, it's because you deserve it,
Yeah.
and you know
Yeah.
what I mean, and it's just
Yeah.
like, they're
We're
like,
all taught
hard-
that,
it's hard
though.
to
I
get
was
it.
taught it.
Right,
I was
right,
taught
right.
that.
People
Yeah.
say that, well, the criminal's
Yeah.
in jail,
Yep.
but with the fine,
yeah, or have an attitude about people on the street, like, yeah, get them off the street, even if it means trumping something up, just get them off the street,
Mhm.
It's like, man.
I mean,
Like that story you told us.
Right, exactly right, and I that's a different story, but yeah, I heard something else just recently that mirrored that, so that's kind of where.
What was the story?
Uh,
In a.
well, two stories, and one was someone shared with me a story about a police officer admitting to them that they would plant stuff on street people just to get them off the street.
Aw.
Right? Yeah.
oh no, there was
Wow.
San Jose, to be specific.
Wow.
But and then another one, just the other day, an elderly friend of mine I was telling him this story as well, and his immediate response before he saw where it was going was like, "Yeah, get him off the street." You know what I mean? And then once the story developed a little bit more, you could see that maybe it did connect with him empathetically to some degree, at least a little bit.
There was you mentioned that I'll get back on topic real quick, but you mentioned the planting, on people that you go back. I think it was within the past 5 years. An officer, detective in the NYPD, during a trial, under oath, all that sort of stuff, straight up said, he goes, yeah, we used to plant drugs on people all the time. Specifically, he said cocaine. That's how much detail he went into. He goes, yeah, we used to plant coke on people all the time because it's easy. You just throw it on the ground and
Yeah.
fucking, oh, is that yours? It was right next to you. Oh, okay. Yeah, they do it all the time. That's the thing that's like, not just like, they didn't say like every once in a while. He said specifically all the time. Anyway, but to get back, what we're talking about, the different, we're talking about like, well, how does it work now, and how do we want to work in the future? You mentioned empathy, and what I've been saying like the past, like, I don't know, I guess when I really started kind of thinking about it more as my focus lately, month or so, something like that, is empathy is going to be the thing that saves the world. Like,
Yep.
we've all kind of come to the conclusion based, or at least most of us have, or some variant of this, through our search for what we think is going on in the world, or what we believe to be the truth, and all that, is that at one point or another, this paradigm we're in right now will not exist. And after that, what's going to happen? Well, we don't know what's going to happen after that, but we do know during that transition, it's going to be rough. Because we've got so much built up on just, ones and zeros and paper and debt, which is backed up by ones and zeros. It's all fake. It's just, thin air sort of stuff. But what's going to get us through that transition is the ability to say,
We're all
that guy
human.
over there who's, having a hard time getting by, well, I can't give him everything I have, and I may not even be able to give him a room in my house or something, but, hey, here's $5 as an example, comparison to whatever may be worth that at the time. Take this, do what you can with it. Hopefully someone down the road will also be able to do the same thing. That's the thing, is to that's what I try to emphasize, is like, listen, like, it's going to be rough, and it's already bad right now. It's already really bad right now. You think about people, kids get out of high school, people 20 to 28, something like that. An entry-level job, you're not getting paid well? You know, what is, and trust me, I'm not the type who's going to be like, we should raise the minimum wage. But what minimum wage is right now is not something that's going to get you by. It's not. I think there's something coming out the other day that McDonald's had made a worksheet of like how to balance your budget for employees, and they gave it to them. And one of the columns was your second job, and it's like, oh, so you've already admitted that I can't make my money working here. So like that's the thing. It's just it's the ability to put yourself in another's shoes to say how are we going to get through this, and so to equate that with what we're talking about, well how to equalize things, get justice in the sense of the scales, you're saying like, they should stay in some sort of facility, a hotel. It sounds pretty much like a hotel. It may not be the Ritz, but you're not getting the jail bologna sandwiches, which are probably not really bologna, and maybe meat, may not be, like that, as you currently may get in a holding cell, in transition. Here's your food. What is this? It doesn't smell like meat. It's bologna. Oh, you might actually get some actual, beef protein of some sort.
That's another element you bring up too, is that there could be a competitive element to this, right?
Exactly.
So you could have which facility, sort of competing for where the bad guys go. You know what I'm saying, right? Like, whatever. Basically that would give incentive for those facilities to be the one that your bottom percentage, whatever criminal element wants to go to, more or less.
And part of that concept that we think of as innocent until proven guilty is, hey, we're acknowledging the fact that you may not have done this. This could be, you could have gotten caught up in something that you didn't do. That's the concept of it. Or at least that's what we've been told. And if I believe that is to be a justifiable system of, you're accused of something, well, we're not going to try to put you up or throw you before you've actually had your fair share. That's empathy right there, saying like, you may have not done this, let's go through the motions first before we just say you've done it. We should make sure that you've done it.
No witch trials.
Already beating somebody senseless before they've gone to a court.
Yes, beating somebody senseless before they've gone to a court. Bail's a weird one. Wait, so I got to pay all this money to get out because I've done this already? What? And it's all based on how many charges you have. So it's all money based on you have a charge.
Would you be doing it to begin with? How are you going to get yourself out of the situation?
You have a bail based on how many charges you have. Well, so they have an incentive to just be like, oh, you have something in the trunk of your car, burglary tools. Oh, we'll add that to the bail. You sucker.
A tire iron is a burglary tool.
Yeah, exactly.
Who would have thought?
You could bust somebody's window in with this and steal their shit.
Sure, leftover school scissors.
Doesn't everybody have a tire iron?
Right, that's just it, right?
But so I guess like, if we sit there and talk about like justice, all right, so. What if you were to have like a sentient machine, right?
We already talked about that with hemp and marijuana.
Well, yeah.
We could have them harvesting and growing.
Right, but so you have a sentient machine, and the sentient machine does not want to consent to something, and the sentient machine is raped. That does kind of come back to robot sex, and I mean I'm not sure if we have enough time to talk about
actually
it.
Putting the robots in
I mean, like how? I mean, I think
institutions.
I think a robot could actually, at that point, if it's sentient, could actually bring forth a case to an arbiter, right?
Yeah.
And,
I don't know.
Are they human?
I don't know. What is sentient?
That's right.
Okay. All right. Do we have time to talk about sentience, or?
I think we're about out of time.
Oh man.
But we will get to it one of these days.
Robot sex at the Hilton.
Robot sex at the Hilton, and have a good night, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.